"Vaughn, wake up," Dad said as he shook me awake. I opened my eyes and tried to focus on the watch on my hand. It was 5 a.m. Why was Dad waking me up at this hour? "What is it?" I asked, annoyed. I sat up and observed the room. Next to my father and older sister, Desiree, were two men. "What's going on, Dad, and who are these people?" "Listen, Vaughn, I know things haven't been going right since the death of your mother, but if you continue going down this path, you'll end up in jail or dead. You know I wouldn't do anything to hurt you, but this needs to be done." "Oh, please, Dad, save me the 'this is going to hurt you more than it does me' speech." "If you want me to go, I'll just go," I said as I stood up. Dad placed his hand over his face and cried as Desiree tried to comfort him. The strangers placed a black pillowcase over my head and dragged me from the house, as though I was on the most wanted list, and dumped me into a vehicle. If my dad didn't want me, then I didn't want him. "Hi, my name is Vaughn. Have you liked and subscribed to our channel yet? And what about that notification bell? Have you tapped it yet? If you haven't, what are you waiting for? Let's get it done today." A few years ago, my mother passed away, and my life hasn't been the same since. My mother understood me while all my dad did was criticize me. I tried not to be home when he was. I started skipping school, hanging out with the wrong crowd, ran away for about 2 weeks. I even let some of my friends come over while Dad wasn't at home. They stole some cash and jewelry, including the watch Mom gave him for their 15th wedding anniversary. After a long, bumpy drive, we came to a halt. I heard the door open and a man pulled the pillowcase from my head. "Why, hello, son. Nice of you to join us. Welcome to St. Augustine's School for Troubled Boys. My name is Sean Chase, and I'm the director of the school. I hope that your stay with us is a pleasant one." I looked around. We were no longer in civilized territory, and the dirt road was proof of that. I looked around and saw about 15 boys working in the field. Mr. Chase shouted, "Hey boys, why don't you come and welcome the new kid?" The movement of the boys seemed slow and unsteady as they made their way towards me. Their eyes looked sunken, and under them were heavy and dark bags. Their clothing was soiled and holed. Some boys wore white while others wore red. They each shook my hand, some more friendly than others, before returning to their tasks. Mr. Chase called out to a staff member, "Let's get him settled and clothed so he can start the day." I soon fell into the grueling routine at the school. The day usually starts at 5 a.m. and all the boys would gather at the dining hall for breakfast. After cleaning up, classes commenced at 7 a.m. Then, the part of the day that the boys dreaded, the exercises. At the back of the school was a steep hill that was fenced. They nicknamed the hill El Diablo. Every morning, each student was given a 20-pound sack of rice that they had to make 15 laps with up and down the hill. After which we had numerous exercises that followed, such as long runs, charging up and down the hill holding a truck tire, scissor kicks, push-ups, wall sits until our legs burned or lungs were on fire. The staff at the school enjoyed taunting and jeering at us. One time when I fell during one of the long runs, Mr. Quentin, a member of staff, encouraged the other boys to help me. They held my legs and dragged me to the finish line and didn't stop no matter how much I yelled at them to do so. At night, when the boys were alone, they spoke about the horror that happened within the walls of the school. Boys who tried to run away were locked up in the closet and sometimes shackled and chained. I thought they were making it up until I saw the marks on Antonio's wrists and ankles. Every day you could earn as much as 3 points. You needed 60 points to call home. Other boys who were favored by the staff were allowed visits home, rental of movies, and even play sports on the field. Parents were not allowed to visit without permission. The ones who get to go home, why don't they tell their parents what's really going on here? I asked. Because Mr. Chase goes with them to visit their families since it's just an afternoon pass. While at the school, I became friends with one boy named Barry. He was a bit on the chubby side and came in around the same time that I did. Tonight, Barry and I, with a few others, had kitchen duty. I'm exhausted. I can't wait to go to bed," I said to Barry as we placed the dirty dishes in the sink. I don't understand why Mr. Chase feels the need to train us as though we were gladiators. All we do is exercise and work. As we were heading back to the dining hall, I saw a woman turn the corner. I felt my jaw drop. "Mom?" I ran to meet her, but when I got to the corner and looked down the corridor, nobody was there. I walked back to the dining hall, confused. "What was that about?" Barry asked. "I thought I saw my mom." "But isn't your mom gone?" Barry asked hesitantly. "I know, but the person looked just like her." "I think you're hallucinating, bro. You were just tired and overworked." You can't bring the dead back to life. You'll feel better in the morning after you get a good night's sleep. The next day, I did not feel better. I kept looking over my shoulder to see if I could get a glimpse of the woman again, but she was never there. Even though I felt as though someone was always staring at me. Maybe it was my mom letting me know that she was with me. After 4 weeks, I could hardly keep my eyes open during the day, and the older, bigger boys took advantage of the weaker ones. Sometimes they stole our meals and would jump us any chance they got. Staff turned a blind eye, and Mr. Chase said that boys will be boys. I wanted my freedom back, and I didn't care what I needed to do to get it. Mr. Chase took a few of us to help clear some land, put up a fence, and restore an old wooden house. After 3 weeks, it was finally time to head back to the school. As we were piling into the van, I noticed Mr. Chase's phone on the seat. I quickly picked it up and stuffed it in my boot. The drive back to camp was the longest drive I ever had. My palm was sweaty and my heart felt like a terrified bird trying to get out of its cage. I knew that I had to stay calm or I would be caught. I breathed a sigh of relief as we arrived at school. Mr. Chase told us to pack away the tools back in the shed. When everyone was out of the shed, I turned off the phone and slipped it between 2 floorboards. During dinner, Mr. Chase realized his phone was missing. That's when things took a turn for the worse at the school. Every room was searched. Every boy was taken into a room one by one and searched by Mr. Chase. The 20 boys who went with Mr. Chase to restore the house were singled out and placed in red t-shirts. I know that one of you knows who the culprit is. This school will not rest until my phone is found, Mr. Chase snarled. Nights were no longer for sleeping. We did drills at night as well as day, even in the rain. A few of the boys got ill, but Mr. Chase continued to push us. Food was now rationed, and with the lack of sleep and dehydration, boys were dropping like flies. I'm sick of this, Victor said as he threw his plate against the wall. Whoever took Mr. Chase's phone needs to return it. We know it was one of you punks who went to restore the house. Which one of you is it? Asked James. It has to be Vaughn. He was the last person in the truck, Antonio added. Why would I want a phone? Who am I gonna call? My father who dumped me in this hellhole? No thank you, I shouted angrily. The fight broke out in the dining hall. All the boys were shackled and cuffed that night. During the night, Mr. Chase called us to his office one by one. Vaughn, if you know who stole my phone, you should come clean. Mr. Chase, I don't know who stole your phone. I glared at him squarely. Are you sure? Because a few of the boys think that you stole the phone. Without hesitation, I responded. And what would I do with a phone? Who would I be calling? I haven't even written so much as a letter to my family since I got to this place. It was true. I had not written a letter, nor did I tell anyone that I missed home. But it wasn't because I didn't want to write, I just didn't know what to say. I sighed heavily. I know I should not be saying this, but I think it's Barry. Mr. Chase and I finished the conversation and I was released. After the interviews, Mr. Chase said he knew who stole the phone, but until he had his phone in his hand, the punishment went on. The next day, while the other boys and I were working the field and doing exercises, the staff made Barry sit and watch. Barry was also given the best meals while we were given beans and rice. The days following, I noticed Barry with black and blue eyes, but wasn't about to confess to what I did. I wanted to get out, and if it meant throwing somebody under the bus, then so be it. One night after ensuring everyone was asleep, I snuck out to the tool shed. I squeezed my hand between the floorboards and used my fingers to grab the phone. I dusted it off and prayed that it still had some battery life. 10% was enough to make a call to the police to let them know what was really going on here. When I spun around to leave the shed, Barry stood guarding the door. So it really was you all this time. I spent 2 weeks getting the wind knocked out of me because of you. I thought we were friends. He slowly walked towards me. I had to do what I had to do, Barry. I didn't come here to make friends. Move. When he refused, I shoved him and he stumbled backwards and landed among the shovels and wheelbarrows that lined the wall. I burst out of the shed and headed for the fence. A few seconds later, I heard Barry alerting everyone. I scaled the fence and ran down the dirt road. I called the police and told them that I was being held hostage at the school and I just escaped. The police asked me for my location and I told them that I was currently running along the road that led to the school. They told me to stay where I was, but how could I? I knew the longer I kept the phone, the easier it was for Mr. Chase to track me. I decided to make one more call. Hi, Dad. Vaughn? Look, I don't have much time, but I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. The phone died. Damn it. I threw the phone into the trees that lined the road. I heard trucks approaching and shouts of familiar voices. I immediately darted into the trees. I looked back and noticed flashlights bobbing towards me. I prayed the police would find me before they did. From the forest, I heard sirens and I ran towards them. I began to feel lightheaded, but I needed to stay alert. I reached the dirt road, but I was too late. The police car swooshed past. I tried running and waving behind the car, but they were too far ahead. Someone grabbed my arm. "You little thief! I can't wait to get back to the school to make an example out of you," Mr. Chase hissed. A few seconds later, a van pulled up and Mr. Chase tried to force me into the van. Suddenly, another vehicle pulled up and the headlights were directly on us. I heard a door open. "Okay, Mr. Chase, put your hands on your head and step away from the boy." It couldn't be. The person walked towards us. "Mom?" I felt myself drop to my knees. Then the world became black. I woke up to the sound of beeping and familiar voices around me. He's up, Desiree shouted excitedly. "Hey, Vaughn, you gave us quite a scare there," Dad said, squeezing my shoulder gently. Then my eyes fell upon a face I never thought I would see again at the side of my hospital bed. "Hey, baby." Mom leaned over and hugged me tightly. When we finally pulled away, I looked at her. "Is this real? Am I dead too?" "No, baby, you're very much alive, and so am I." "But if you were alive all this time, why did you make us believe you were dead?" "Well, when my last undercover case went south and your dad started getting death threats, all I thought about was the best way to keep the people that I loved safe. When I went to work undercover at the school 3 years ago, I never expected you to be there, Vaughn. I'm so sorry that you had to go through it all, but my hands were tied." "So does that mean you and Dad are getting back together?" I asked, looking between the both of them hopefully. "Well, son," Dad said, "let's focus on you getting better first, okay?" Mom kept us abreast of everything that was happening at the school. The school is currently under investigation after receiving allegations from the 60 students that stayed at the school. Mr. Chase was charged with child abuse and negligence and was granted $100,000 bail. I testified against Mr. Chase because I can't allow another boy to go through the torment that I went through. That experience changed my life. I am now in a Big Brother program, which helps boys who are slipping through the cracks.